Hello, and welcome to session 2 of our ongoing webinar series here at TransVoyant. I'm Brian Lindenmeyer, Vice President of Customer Growth, and I'll be your host today. For those that joined our first webinar on Visibility is Dead, we're excited to present our next step in your supply chain resiliency. If you did not catch our first webinar, we will make it available to you. Just please reach out to us and we'll send you the link. But today we're going to be presenting a real-life customer journey into an AI-enabled resilient supply chain. We have saved some time at the end of this webinar to answer questions, so please feel free to submit any of them to the panel via the chat feature on this webinar. Now, before we begin, let me give you a quick overview on TransVoyant. For over a decade, TransVoyant has been indexing the world's supply chain data to create reusable, automated, and intelligent decision-making tools for operators of supply chains so that you can have a continuous business command and control platform. Our genesis was rooted in national security, and our platform has helped organizations identify and interdict real-time and predicted threats that could disrupt your supply chain plan. Our goal in all this is to make supply chains become more autonomous and self-driven, where orchestration, regulation, even optimization of supply chains and the adjustments to those plans that you have become unconscious actions on our platform. In short, it's really about empowering you to be able to audible out of a bad plan or play, just like a quarterback in football, quickly and efficiently. With that said, I'd like to now introduce you to our speaker, who will provide a real-world roadmap and customer journey to that AI-enabled resilient supply chain. Allison Fowler is the Chief Product Officer at TransVoyant. Prior to joining TransVoyant, Allison was a Senior Director in Global Supply Chain at Medtronic. You may know of them as they are a medical device company that makes ventilators. And she worked successfully through the COVID pandemic, start to finish there. She also holds a master's degree in operations research, and she brings a wealth of experience in leveraging optimization and simulation technologies to drive supply chain efficiencies. Welcome, Allison, to this webinar.
Thanks, Brian. Can you guys hear me okay? All good?
Yep.
I'm thrilled to talk to this group about such a relevant topic today. We have a pretty concise agenda, so I'll start with introducing the problem, specifically why your current systems are not set up to solve it, show some sample customer solutions, and then as well as a customer journey, and then discuss why this is all important in the context of the future autonomic supply chain. So let's get kicked off. With this audience, I don't need to spend a lot of time defining the problem of supply chain resiliency. You already know it intimately. You live it every day. If you were on the webinar at the top of the hour, you saw the quote from Accenture about the average time it takes to identify a supply chain issue and then the time it takes to actually act upon it. We all know days and weeks don't work when you're dealing with critical supply products or trying to maintain competitive advantage against your competitors. In my prior life, I was dealing with disruptions like the ones you see on the chart here. Hurricanes taking out entire manufacturing operations for weeks, labor strikes disrupting critical hospital supply routes. Of course, like Brian mentioned, the COVID dealing with unpredictable demand spikes on our ventilator portfolios while near zero demand on elective surgery products. And not to mention semiconductor supply constraints, port delays. Lots of these items on the right side are familiar to all of us that are running and driving the global supply chains of the world. One of the reasons I joined TransVoyant was because the founders developed a unique approach to anticipating and acting on threats based on their experience building an infrastructure and systems that defend our country from anticipated national security threats. So they're able to take that same approach and apply it to the commercial supply chain world that we still today do for the Department of Defense. In that prior life I mentioned, we spent a lot of time reacting to what we at TransVoyant call current you see on the screen. For example, I would get an email with the notification of a current disruption, or maybe even my boss would call and say, hey, I heard this on the news. What are we doing about it? How's it affecting, there's a strike, there's a geopolitical event, a fire, weather. And the email or my boss would notify me of that active or past disruption. And maybe even I had some insights around sites that were located near it through tribal knowledge or a map that I was able to get from an existing system. But the follow-on question was always, so what? What can I do about it? That static data was telling me an event occurred, possibly near a network location, but it didn't help me address the resiliency or even optionality that I had in the moment. It was at best reactive and at worst no longer relevant. At TransVoyant, we are looking at not only current, but also future current and future. We quantify the probability of the event happening times the magnitude of the impact, and then we align that predicted asset location to the predicted event location and prescribe an action. Given that, let me share with you a couple of specific examples of how our customers are quantifying and acting on that disruption. So think about, I already talked about current, but think about future current. Recent Baltimore bridge collapse close to home for me. I'm about 30 minutes from Baltimore. My husband's from there. When that happened, within minutes, TransVoyant was able to notify our customers of the impact of their supply chain. In this case, it's the event is a current event because not a whole lot of data that was able to predict that event was actually going to happen, maybe the minutes before when the electricity started going out on the ship. But there wasn't a whole lot we could have done to predict that current event. What we could do for our customers immediately was talk about the future impact to the supply chain. So we were able to tell them, okay, what's already in the port, what was on the way to the port, what was planned new routings for ships that were already en route. A lot of them went to Richmond, for instance. And then how much of a delay to then communicate to their customers. So any action they could take to save shelf life constrained products or temperature constrained products, and really, give them some true context around the impact as well as an action to take within their supply chain. It was a major step in the right direction, right, to be able to prevent, to provide that risk mitigation and then prioritize response to an event in that future current scenario, where most of the time we're just scrambling. On the right side, you see an example of TransVoyant where we were able to actually take action on a future event. So a future asset and a future event. As you can imagine, this threat with the Red Sea was known in the intelligence community months in advance, and for the public at least weeks in advance, right? It wasn't necessarily a surprise when the attacks started actually happening. Yet many supply chains are still reactionary on this event. For TransVoyant customers, there's a screenshot straight from the system. We were able to inform them of the potential supply chain impact in advance. We were able to plan rerouted shipments, again, communicate delays to customers, at a minimum helping them retain their customers, and at a maximum creating a competitive advantage with some informed actions that they could take. Like you see there at the bottom, diverted routes or, redeploying stock to support the delays that we were anticipating from this ongoing event. There's lots of other opportunities around future. Weather events are obviously one of the easier ones because we have a lot of forecast data about weather events, traffic situations that are occurring, other social unrest or strike information. So, a lot of other future events that we can start to pull out for our customers and provide that value. I'm going to talk for a few minutes about how do we start this journey with a customer. You see in front of you an example of going from a pilot all the way through optionality. So I'll walk through a couple of these, what happened in each of those phases with this sample customer. And And putting all the buzzwords aside, I want to leave you with two key takeaways from this journey. One, there's a huge and measurable value in a resilient supply chain. In this case, straight off from the pilot, we were able to get a good value and create an ROI immediately within a short amount of time. And most of our customers were able to see that. We aren't just, risk and resiliency is not just setting up a insurance policy for potential disruptions, right? You should be able to talk to your leaders about, we're implementing real-time insights to be able to take action, get you the answers you need, protect revenue, satisfy our customers, deliver a competitive advantage. It's not just an insurance policy. That's number one. Number two, this is an innovation journey. So, it's not a one-time system implementation. I've been through many of those in my supply chain career. It's about, you're going to continue to leverage your existing planning and execution systems. But what you're going to add into that is optionality for when the plan goes wrong. It's not just about scenario planning. It's about real-time, in-the-moment actions, calling the audible, like Brian mentioned at the beginning, where, based on optionality, you've created optionality before the event occurs. So one of my customers once said, we spend 30% of our time coming up with a perfect plan, and then the other 70% of the time coming up with a response when that plan doesn't materialize. So starting just with the visibility, the pilot that we started out with, many times the first step is just prioritizing a set of sites or lanes. We turn on some visibility for that customer on those prioritized set, and then we work together to deliver on protecting prioritized shipments or customers, particular product lines, and get some immediate value. Then we move into what we call foundational flow and behavior. We try to bring to life what we call our 3 E's of data. So enterprise data, external data, and ecosystem are the 3 E's. So TransVoyant brings to the table our ecosystem and enterprise data. We're connecting to your carriers, your suppliers, your customers in some cases, bringing all that data under one place. We subscribe to many different streams of external data. And then we have, of course, you bring your customer enterprise data, your enterprise data to the table. When we put all those together, we're able to deliver real-time, multi-mode, in-node, inside site insights to start to light up that digital representation of your supply chain. Many times our customers realize that with it, once we start to light up these actions that need to be taken and say, hey, we're seeing this anomaly in your data, we're seeing this as a risk, we need to take action, whether that be a temperature excursion, that be a carrier's not performing, a delayed shipment, whatever that might be, we are able to give them the action to be taken. And many times we find out that our customers actually don't have anyone inside their organization that can take the actions and intervene. So we also stood up a TransVoyant Cares organization, which you see there at the bottom, that does the interventions on behalf of our customers. In a way, we eat our own dog food. We use the platform to identify where we need to intervene and take that action and save the product or save the customer for our customers. On the derived part of the innovation part of the journey you see here, the derived insights come from TransVoyant's 12 years of global flow and behavior data. We're constantly growing, constantly adding to that data from the history of the global ecosystem and external data that I mentioned earlier. And we have our machine learning models that are running on top of all of that data, and we're able to deliver truly game-changing actions. You hear in the world today, you can't have AI without the data to run it. So we have 12 years of data that's running our AI to inform those decisions. Whether that be, where our customers can move from air to ocean and see cost reduction and emission savings. Maybe that's, supplier collaboration or a pay for performance with couriers through a WhatsApp-enabled courier communication that we deployed for one of our customers, or could be collaborating with suppliers in Asia on product availability and release batches. We have a variety of different insights that we're able to unlock at that point once we brought together all of the data and applied the algorithms and the AI on top of it. Finally, optionality, which is near and dear to my heart, having spent the majority of my career in supply chain design. Optionality comes about when you have been able to predict and act on the designs you set up in your supply chain. So that could be alternate sourcing, alternate modes, switching carriers due to performance issues, or deploying, new inventory strategy because of the risk you're seeing in a particular portfolio or a particular part of the country or world. And during my time at TransVoyant, I've seen that optionality that I worked on so much in my career previously comes from building resiliency from the ground up and enabling the operators to actually take action on the optionality. And in essence, if you design a network, but you're not able to actually act on the optionality you've given, or you don't even know when you need to take that action, then you're spending a whole bunch of money for a network with optionality that you can't execute on. So that's what I've started to see with our TransVoyant customers, is being able to take that action and the best action for the company with all the information we can gather at the time. Bringing this back to our, keeping the end in mind, right? That Brian mentioned this future autonomic supply chain that we all see coming with this self-aware, acting unconsciously across the different entities in the supply chain. We see that coming, as I'm sure many of you do too, and there's pilots in certain areas where we're automating pieces of this. There's more and more on-demand customers in terms of machine customers and how our customers are placing orders. And TransVoyant has built the most comprehensive solution to be able to enable that future supply chain, because we can predict, again, from the beginning, the future asset and future event alignment, so future, which enables you to act on optionality and really be able to respond in alignment with your profitability and customer satisfaction goals, right? So a lot of times in those scenarios that I was talking about at the beginning, even if I could tell my leadership, hey, I think it might have this impact, or I might have this product I'm concerned about, I couldn't go back and articulate what does that actually mean from margin and customer satisfaction and an overall picture to them. And, I'm seeing that with some of our customers. So this future autonomic supply chain requires the ability to do that. And we are excited to be on this journey with our customers. And I hope to talk to some of you about that as well. I'll hand it over to you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you very much, Allison. That was great. A few questions have come in. I'm going to start with one that starts at the beginning that I think we both heard this a few times. What level of confidence does a company need to have in our data for a solution like this?
Yeah. So we all know the phrase garbage in, garbage out, kind of tired of the phrase, but we all know we have to have a high level of confidence to trust the output. But we all know our data is not great. So what we've done is actually co-develop with our customers part of our solution that our customer, it's actually enabled by AI, and our customers started calling it perfect supply chain data as a service. We all know it's not really a thing to have perfect supply chain data, but that's the goal of it. And so what that does is we take a step to identify gaps in the data and prescribe solutions to those gaps. We automate those and do a continuous harmonizing and continuous cleansing of the data as a part of that first implementation. And we do checks and automations around it. The AI assists with some of the complex data mappings. And then we have, data quality and governance process in place. So really, to answer your question, no one has confidence in their data, but that's okay. We have an approach, and we go step by step on that data trust journey with our customers so that they can be confident in the decisions that are being offered.
Excellent. Another question around data is, you mentioned external or your ecosystem of data. How many different data elements or streams are there that you have in the TransVoyant platform?
Yeah, and of course, someone decided to mow the lawn right while we're doing this, so hopefully it's not too loud. Yeah, so the ecosystem and so we ecosystem data. Let's start there. Ecosystem data. We typically have 90-95% of our customers carriers already connected in the platform, right? So all the big guys you can imagine. Many of our existing customers have other carriers that we're working with, logistics service providers. But in the case that we don't have someone, we can quickly roll them up, get them on with our existing APIs, or really pretty flexible to whatever integration method that ecosystem partner wants to have. Even suppliers, we've been able to create unique ways to get suppliers on board so that we are communicating with them and in whatever way they need to. Talking about external data, one of the three E's, we have about 3,000 different streams of sources coming in on the risk data, right? So weather data, the social unrest data, chatter, Google search data, right? So all of this different data that back to the DoD and security beginnings, right? We have a whole bunch of different data streams that are coming in that inform us about the global flow and behavior of the supply chain and where we need to take action and how to understand those anomalies in the data sets.
Nice. So I assume with this external and ecosystem data that you can easily or readily enable for a customer, can you give us an example of how a customer could immediately start using AI today?
Yeah. So the whole platform, is running on ML and AI models that we've developed. We actually have an analytics toolkit as well. So we have some customers that have their own data scientists that can build, test, and run their own models. And the great thing is they can also leverage the data we already have, right? So a lot of times you might hire your own. I saw this in a past life too, where we would hire data scientists, but then we didn't have all the data that they needed to be able to run models. So you're coming to the table with a lot of data, your own data, external data, but also the ability to build and deploy. But one specific example comes to mind is our lane risk assessment AI. So we're continuously bringing in, again, all that ecosystem and external data to inform our lane risk profiles. And so our customers, we talked about interventions earlier and intervening on different disruptions in your supply chain. They can actually use this lane risk AI to reduce the need to ever intervene by making the better decision, again, optionality upstream in that decision-making process. So one example of that is a customer on temperature-controlled product, cold chain product, being able to say, hey, across this lane, we've seen, in the last few years, more temperature excursion this time of year where it's hot or it's particularly cold. So let's just choose not to take that route and not even see that excursion to begin with for that month of the year or whatever it may be, right? So as the system continuously gets smarter, the AI part of it, right, then it's we're actually recommending and making those changes before we even have to intervene.
Awesome. I think you have time for one last question. You may have hit on it, but it might have been from someone that didn't see the start. So, what do you suggest a company do as their first step in this journey of achieving AI-enabled resiliency?
Sure. I'd say the first step is identify the need in terms of a signal or a disruption that you are struggling with, right? It could be stockouts, could be excessive inventory, could be expiry delays, temperature excursions, like I mentioned, back orders, whatever it might be, right? Figure out what's your biggest signal or disruption. And at the same time, determine the outcome, you want to change. It's a little bit of chicken egg, right? What's the signal that's causing the outcome? Sometimes you got to do a little bit of work there, but what that outcome might be: improving customer satisfaction, improve utilization, reducing cost, preventing discards, reducing emissions. Figure out those two things. What's your signal or disruption that you're trying to mitigate or act upon, and then what is the outcome that you want to achieve, and build a value prop there. If you have those two things, a value proposition and business case should be fairly simple. Say simple, but fairly straightforward, at least, once we have a little bit of data to tell that story. And then pilot it, right? So in the customer journey slide, I had the customer journey slide, it started with a pilot, right? And in that pilot, we were able to deliver a major ROI. So whether that be a selected prioritized sites, sometimes customers choose a prioritized business unit, a couple lanes. It can be small, deliver the value early, and then start getting to the optionality and resiliency as you go through the journey.
Historically, are these pilots take a year, months, days, weeks?
Months. So you can get a pilot up and running, in 3 to 6 months. Obviously depends on scope. I got to throw that in there. But if a scope is what we've typically seen across a prioritized set of lanes or prioritized set of sites or product portfolio, it's months. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that insight. Well, we've come to the top or bottom of the hour here, and we really want to appreciate those that have joined us. For those that may have joined late, we'll make this webinar available so you can watch it in its entirety or even share within your organization. We do appreciate your time. Allison, thank you very much for your insights and the roadmap you provided. Please feel free to reach out to us. You can find us online on social networks such as LinkedIn, even Twitter, and feel free to email me if you have any specific questions. We'd love to follow up with you. So thank you again for your time, Allison. We appreciate it, and we look forward to the next webinar.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Thank you.